Hello, hello, hello. I'm Kimberly HayDay Boga.
And I'm Amanda Day.
And you're listening to Fundraising HayDay,
where we cover the how-tos of grants and fundraising.
And how we can all do a better job of changing the world through philanthropy.
And remember, our Patreon subscribers get these episodes early, so come join us.
Come on.
Are you keeping up with all things HayDay? Speaking of joining us, really the best way to do that is to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter, which is the HayDay Hot Takes.
It is free. I'd like to just say that again, because it's free and it's good. And it comes once a week. And yes, we have, and I say this is a vegetarian and a bad vegan, we have the beefy articles about trends and how-to pieces, but we also have book reviews every week. If you'd like to read, and Amanda and I have very different and eclectic reading tastes, so there's going to be something for everybody. We've got our hot take, thus the name of the newsletter, where one of us is beefing about something, because beef seems to be the word I want to say right now. And all you have to do, if you want a beef-free experience, that is also fine. I pretty much live my life that way. So all you got to do is go to haydayservices.com, HayDay services.com, and you can subscribe at a little bannery thingy, and that's the technical term at the top of the page.
Bannery thingy, absolutely. So our website, well, our website's great too, but our newsletter really is the best way to keep up with podcast episodes, learn about new developments in the grant world, find, like Kimberly said, find great book recommendations, and it's all delivered directly to your inbox. So please subscribe today. We are so excited to introduce you, our listeners, to the second half, Season 9 sponsor of the Fundraising HayDay podcast. The Encore Institute for Social Impact partners with nonprofit organizations to secure funding, develop actionable strategies, strengthen capacity, and demonstrate results. We're joined by Shelley Latham, GPC, founder, and CEO of Encore, to learn more about their work with a mini-series during the second 12 episodes of this season.
So, Shelley, you've shared with us that one of Encore's main priorities is helping agencies become more sustainable, operate more effectively, and strengthen their impact. Can you share one or two methods, your secret sauce, that you implement to help clients reach those goals?
Absolutely. One thing we've realized over time is that sustainability and impact are rarely just about funding. A lot of organizations are trying to navigate rapid change while also managing communication challenges, staffing strain, increasing operational complexity, and simply more demand for services. Much of our work now weaves in practices that helps organizations strengthen how they operate internally. So, for example, we often help teams build more consistent planning and communication routines so that priorities and responsibilities are clear across the organization. We also help organizations create more intentional stewardship and outreach practices, so relationship building doesn't fall behind when teams are stretched thin. Honestly, a lot of this work is simply about building in ways to help organizations become more proactive operationally instead of constantly trying to react to pressure.
Makes so much sense to approach it as a way to integrate things rather than having each little area of sustainability stand alone. To find out more about this incredible team with expertise across all aspects of nonprofit operations and how to hire them, visit EncoreISI.com. Encore is committed to being the most effective and highest value partner possible.
Well, welcome, listeners, to the Fundraising HayDay podcast, whether you've been with us since day one, way back in 2018, or whether this is your first episode. Go back in time.
Back in time.
We're so excited. And let me tell you, in 2018, I would not have guessed that we would eventually be doing an episode on AI, because that just wasn't on my radar back then. But that is what we're doing today. We're talking about AI, specifically in grant writing and beyond. And let me preface it, too, by saying, like, whether you loathe AI and don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, or whether you use it on the daily, this is a judgment-free zone here, okay? It should come as no surprise to you that Kimberly and I both have different uses, and both have different thoughts and feelings on AI and how we use it. And so that's what today is for both of us, to kind of give our side, how we use it, how we don't, what we like, what we don't, kind of a thing. And wherever in that spectrum you fall, great, right? We're not saying it's bad. We're not saying it's great. We're saying it's a tool to be used, right?
Yeah.
So, real quick, kind of my roller coaster of emotions when AI first came out. When it first came out, I'll be honest, I didn't use it at all, never touched it, but I'm not an early adopter of new technology. Like, I'm not the first that's going to get the new thing that comes out. I usually let other people give it a whirl, get some feedback from friends and people I trust, and see what they say. So I didn't touch it for a while. Then several people were singing its praises, including Kimberly. And so I thought, you know what? I think I will use it. In fact, what really kind of pushed me over the edge, it's been a couple of years ago, but we interviewed Beth Z, your nerdy best friend. And so she was talking about how AI, especially when it comes to writing, is great to start off to use for the dumb stuff, like the stuff that isn't such high stakes. And I thought, you know what? We do write a lot of blog posts, but let me start there. Let me start there and use it. And so that's what I often would use it for, just to kind of get my feet wet when it comes to AI, using it for those kinds of things. And I will admit that AI certainly can help with efficiency on a lot of things. I do understand that. I didn't really like I felt like I've been writing so long. I feel like I'm pretty fast at it. I feel like I have my own voice. And I feel like a lot of times, even when I got information from AI for like a blog post, I still ended up coming back and adding in my personal stories and changing the way things were phrased because that didn't sound like me. And so in some ways, I felt like it was almost taking a little bit longer. And so I really don't, as far as like going into like ChatGPT or certain models like that, I am now not using it in that way. So that's going to be my take is going to be more of, I know I use it because I know it's embedded in some things that I use automatically, and I'm not mad at that, but I don't seek out the platforms to use it today. Now, in 3 months, will that change? Maybe, I don't know. So, what about you, Kimberly?
I just think that if we are able to, like what we're doing right now, because we're talking through, we have very different approaches to using AI for very different things. I think it's just good that we're coming together to have this discussion, because the AI is marvelous and AI is the devil kind of thing is really not going to get us where we are.
Yeah.
I think of AI for me as a tool that's a powerful tool, not unlike fire, like how people first began, with fire. It transformed the way that humans or human-like creatures lived and cooked and built and did all these things. But fire also really powerful, really bad. Right behind me is a scene from Maui where we were lucky enough to go and train earlier this year, and an island that was devastated by a horrible fire like 2 or 3 years ago. So fire, useful tool, can be really dangerous. Cars, especially in the United States, particularly in Atlanta, because
Public transit is not the greatest thing here.
because racist people keep voting it down. Hi, come at me. Hello at HayDay Services, and I will tell you all about it. However, a car is a magnificent thing that can get you places, and we all know this. But also, I've had cars hit me hard in my own car twice in the last 10 years, and probably 4 times in my lifetime living in Atlanta. And gas fumes, traffic, congestion, air quality, quality of life, all of these things.
Oh, the number of deaths on American roadways by cars is huge. It's astronomical.
Of course it is. Of course it is. Pedestrian, all kinds of things. So super useful tool, super powerful tool can be misused. Yep. And wine. I don't drink wine anymore. Personal choice, but wine, bringing people together, a celebration, a part of a meal that enriches it for so many people. But then you also have it, not just wine, but I mean any alcohol, right? Anything like that. It can be a wonderful, warm, celebratory kind of thing, and it can quit. And then it can also be something that damages your health and causes violence. And if you get in the car with if you get in the car with a cigarette and you're drunk, you're combining all of those dangerous tools all into one, and bad things may happen. But I don't, to belabor the point a little more, I think that's how I look at AI. I feel like it's just as powerful as some of these things that I talked about. So I would say that this is the discussion to have for yourself. How do you feel about cars? I try and drive now as little as possible, but I live in Atlanta, so I got to drive. I don't build bonfires in my backyard because I don't want to burn a city down. But it's how, and I just, I choose not to drink because of some health goals that I have. So, but I think examining it and looking at it and seeing whether or not it works. And I know that Amanda, you sort of went through how you use AI in the workplace, and you kind of don't really.
Yeah. I don't. Well, and let me say, I don't really use it for like I don't like, oh, I need to write this. Let me get it to do a first draft for me. But I do use it for things like, let's say I am writing an article about, the things you need to prepare for behind the scenes before a site visit. I'm writing a blog post about that. I will write my blog post and I may have all my points, and then I may go to AI and say like, hey, what are the top, 10 things you need to know for doing a site visit, to see what it says. Because sometimes I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about, you need to make sure that all the right people are at the table. And that was one of the points. So I do, for idea generation, I have used it for things like that. And I don't use it a ton, but I do. And I usually use Claude. That's probably my favorite out of all the platforms that have a free version. So I like it the best. Couldn't really tell you why. I just like how it works and seems it does the job for me. So I did certainly use that. And I will say too, like, I know it's embedded in so many things. Like, my Gmail now, if it's a long email, I can see a summary. And half the time I ignore it because I feel like I need to read all of the details. But if it's one of those things where like I have 5 minutes and I need to make sure there's nothing pressing in my email before I go to this meeting, I have read the summaries a couple of times. So, I mean, I do think it has its useful and helpful place. And so I know I'm using it because it's just automatically in things that tools I'm already using. But that's probably the limit to what I'm using it for at the moment.
Fair.
Yeah.
So I use it differently, and I use it more often. And I also use it, much like the whole fire, cars, and wine thing, I use it knowing that as a writer of fiction, there are a lot of these large language models trained by illegally uploading or downloading, however you want to look at it, books into their systems, and that is wrong. And so, yeah, I have a paid subscription to Claude. I have like the lowest level. I think it's like $20 a month, because I use it a lot in helping me format things.
Yeah.
And in some editing or more like copy editing for space or page limitations, I find it very useful for that. I don't have a good design eye, and I'm kind of clumsy in formatting tables and charts and things that where I have the information, but I need it tight and I need it to fit in a space. Like I'm working on a narrative for a federal grant, and you have a certain page limit. And so I will go in and say, hey, I don't actually type in the word hey, but I do have very long and polite prompts, because I find the more specific I am.
Yes, I've heard that.
And it makes it easier. And I'll just say, these are the objectives. I need 2 columns and a shaded da 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 da. And people who might be listening or watching will be like, oh, I can do that in a second. Fantastic, good for you. But it's things like that I would call like the busy work. I find it super, super useful. I also use it as Amanda, like you said, to identify gaps in a proposal that I've drafted.
Yeah.
I'll draft it and I'll walk it. I'll do a crosswalk with the NOFO, and then I'll upload the NOFO or attach the NOFO and the draft and say, what did I miss according to this NOFO? How can this proposal be stronger?
That's smart.
And sometimes I'm like, well, no, this agency isn't asking for that kind of money. But a lot of times the more specific I am, it might say something like, hey, you said this once here, but not over here. Or you didn't talk at all about in the need statement about the service area as prescribed. That's actually, I would catch that. But other things that are maybe a little more specific, and I find it very useful. I'm also very clear that I only do that on grants where it's clear in the NOFO that there's no mention of using the AI. So even though I'm doing a comparison crosswalk with AI and not drafting in it, I just want to be clear. I also have a paid Grammarly subscription, and I find that enormously helpful for emails and Word documents. Emails, especially when I'm going fast. I'm an excellent keyboardist, but when I'm going fast and I'm thinking out loud, it saved me so many times from sending out emails with typos in them, which is something I can't stand. So I use it for that. And Grammarly also, I load it into Word documents, and also it's connected to Adobe if I'm editing PDF documents. And it's just sort of a spell check on steroids, and also helps me eliminate active voice quickly. I mean, passive voice quickly, which is what is a big thing for me. And another thing that I have used, but I haven't used it in a minute, is Perplexity, which is a platform that I find helpful for comparisons and research. If I'm looking at, it had a couple different modes. Then they went to, there was a free version, and they're like, oh, you have to set up an account. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that right now. But it's almost like, and it could be totally misused. Speaking of fire, cars, and wine, totally misused for writing research papers, because it could flat out probably draft something like that. But I use it for here are some stats that I found. What other stats are out there around substance abuse among veterans in, I'll just use Hawaii as an example, in the state of Hawaii, because that's my background. And so it might pull up something that I haven't found yet, but also you got to go in and check you just got to check things, because sometimes I'm like, oh my God, that's just somebody's website. Shut up. I'm not using that. But I also, now that I think about it, I also use Google Scholar to look up things. And that is a form of AI. I mean, so you can kind of get into the weeds about what I use and what I don't use. Am I a passive user? Am I an active user? I would say I'm an active user, but I'm real careful about how I use it. And I don't use it to write first drafts. I don't use it to, it's like I want to generate the work, and then I want to crosswalk it against certain things. But I definitely use it to help me. I can't even tell you. I work with a client now where it's like I have to create, which is a really good idea, and it's a great tool, and you're never too old to learn new things. Creating a list of questions, because one of my main clients really enjoys responding to written questions versus just talking something through in a meeting about the components of a program, and I respect that. And so, and these questions need to be in two different languages. So I'm able to get the questions and then format them in a way so that the document's not super unwieldy and it's easy to work with and build, just in ways that I would not think of. And I've noticed that once I've started doing that, then the client was like, oh, this is really great. This is so easy to follow. This is so succinct. And so yeah, I might generate the questions, but to put it in a format, there's something about the formatting something that looks really professional that then makes people go, oh, here it is. So so those are the many different ways I use it in the workplace.
Yep. So now that we walked you through all that, we want to talk a little bit about new grant professionals, oftentimes when Kimberly and I either keynote, I'm combining keynoting and training as one word. When we keynote or train, it's a new word we're adding to the dictionary, or maybe meet with clients, whether formally or informally, people are always, no matter what the training is about, we almost always get a question about, the use of AI in writing grants. And a lot of newbies, especially people that, haven't no experience whatsoever in grant writing, maybe very new to the nonprofit world, they have the idea that they can just be like, hey, here's the RFP. This is who our organization is. AI write a proposal for us and we're good to go. So you've got that end of the spectrum. And then you've also got people who kind of like me are like started off with the, I don't know anything. I don't think I should ever use it kind of a thing. Not that I think you should never use it.
It's kind of an age-related thing.
Yeah.
It can be.
Mm-hmm.
It can be.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that as a person of a certain age who uses AI on the regular, but a lot of times it's like if you're in your 20s and 30s, you might in these grant teachings and trainings that we do be like, oh, I can just have AI write the grant. I mean, I've had people say that to me, and I'm like, not really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then older people are like, I don't want to use it. It's terrible. And it's like, okay.
Well, and you even, I mean, within our profession, even you've got people who think you shouldn't use it at all because, I learned the craft the hard way and there shouldn't be a shortcut and it's a cheating. And even though I don't use it a lot,
don't drive a car, don't use fire, and don't drink wine. How about that? Why don't you just cut it all out, man? Just cut it all out. No tools for you, Margaret.
Yeah. Well, and again, if that's a choice, again, my choice not to use it, but no judgment. But I'm like, but it is a tool that if you can use it to make your stuff better, then you use it. It's I use spell check because, like Kimberly, I'm a good typer, but when I get on a roll, I miss. Today, twice, when I was working on something, I spelled the word language wrong twice in the same paragraph. So things like that happen. So, but no, I don't think anyone should ever use AI to write your grant from start to finish.
Nope.
But I still think people should not be afraid to use it. And even though I don't use it, I'm not discouraging anybody else from using it. I think you should take advantage of a tool that helps you. But again, I just want to remind people that it is a tool. It is not the end all be all answer, right? Kimberly says she doesn't use it for a first draft. If you're a new grant writer and you're like, I don't even know where to begin. Okay, sure. If you need maybe you've never written objectives. Give me some examples of objectives around blah, 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 blah. Now, probably the objectives they spit out don't match what you're trying to do. But now you've got a couple of examples of what objectives, like how they flow, what kinds of information are in there. Then you've got that. And right, because I'm the kind of person, if I see an example, then I can create my own, right? So I don't think there's anything wrong.
But you're also assuming that those are going to be good examples.
Well, that's true too. And and AI does hallucinate at times. So
yeah, I'm just saying,
yeah.
And also, if you're asking it to build something, if you don't input anything,
that's true. Yeah.
Then if you don't have good source documents, like even an annual report or something like that, or a recent law or a proposal that someone wrote who's no longer at the organization last year, that got a good award, or you feel good about. If you don't load anything in there, you're just going to get. I mean, garbage in, garbage out. That's my hesitation about it. And if you've never written an objective before, how will you know if what you see is a good example, good or not?
That's absolutely true.
And it's not a shameless plug for our training. I'm just saying there are lots of places that you can go, although also it's good, but there are lots of places you could go to get that information. I think just blindly asking it to do something like that, you're just going to and you're also going to get a really generically written proposal.
That's true too. Anyway. Well, and no matter what you're getting from AI, whatever you're putting into it or getting out, please read every word, because chances are there's stuff in there that either is just flat made up, it's a data point that doesn't even exist anywhere. That has happened. Or even though it may be accurate, it may not be. It may be stats from Hawaii when you're doing a project in Georgia. Well, that doesn't really, unless you're, doing a joint project with Hawaii, that really doesn't help you, right? So you want to make sure that no matter how you're using AI, please don't assume that what it's written is 100% accurate. Just like if I got if I was working with a teammate, if Kimberly wrote a grant application and asked me to edit it because I'm part of the team, I'm going to read every word and have questions about things like,
Yeah.
right? So you should do the same with AI. And I think we also need to understand that now it's taken a few years, but funders are starting to catch up with trying to figure out what they want to do when it comes to AI. And a lot of them, not a lot of them yet, but you're starting to see more and more funders asking about, you basically certifying whether or not you have used AI in the writing of your proposal. So they're not denying, they're not saying you can't use it. They're just saying, hey, if you use it, you need to let us know. And that seems pretty straightforward, right? Like, hey, I put my thing in Chat GPT and it did this thing, so yeah, I used it. But that's not all the case. And I hadn't even thought about all these repercussions until a grant colleague of ours, Fielding Jezreel, she wrote a great article just a couple of weeks ago about these AI certifications. And she brought up some great points that I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to get nuts because even if I didn't straight up use AI, but what if I pulled some language from a annual report that whoever
Mhm.
created that used AI? Or what if I grabbed last year's application and pulled some language from there, but I didn't write it, but I didn't know the person who wrote it used AI. So I technically am using AI, right? And what is AI? Again, is it only because I've put it in Claude or is it because I use Grammarly or those kinds of things? And then also you've got the AI detection tools aren't that great.
No, they're not.
So it's just it's going to be complicated. There's going to be a lot of issues. One of the things she mentioned in her article too is like she took some grants she had written like over a decade ago before AI was even a thing at all and fed it into this like AI detection. And it was saying that like 33% of it was AI. And she was like, none of it was AI because AI wasn't around then. So even the detection models is not accurate. And so are you going to start seeing people that say, no, I didn't use AI because you really didn't, but it's going to detect it. And now because you didn't fill out the form the way they think you should have, you're denied. It's going to get ugly, I think, and sloppy before they figure all of this out.
Well, and a lot of these certification questions are simply yes and no, which again, typical for a lot of funders that are like, oh, well, we need to get on top of this. If you used it at all, let us know. And it's like, think about it. Again, fire, cars, wine. Are you using the car? Are you getting drunk, getting in your car and drag racing down the streets of Atlanta? That's a very harmful use of many different elements that are dangerous. Or are you driving people to register to vote in the middle of the day? You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there are a lot of different ways to use a car. And again, there are a lot of different ways to use AI, and a blanket question like that also demonstrates to me that the funder doesn't really understand, and that maybe a consultant or someone or a concerned trustee is like, we don't want AI. And I'm like, so why don't you?
Yeah.
Are you afraid of poorly written grants because you're already getting those? Are you afraid of people plagiarizing? That's probably already happening on some level.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it that you're afraid of? Are you afraid of made up data? You don't need AI to make up data in your needs statement. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, now obviously you want to have citations, but if you don't ask for citations, then anyway, it just takes me down a rabbit hole of what is it that you're really afraid of. And later on, there are plenty of things about overuse of AI and environmental effects that I want to bring up because I feel really strongly about it. But in terms of the quality of your grant proposals, what are you afraid of? And
Yeah.
also, you're assuming that these tools to detect AI are foolproof, as you said. But hey, guess what? Guess what that is? It's an AI tool to look at another AI tool,
Right.
right? I mean, hi,
I didn't think
that's
about
what it
that.
is. So you're using AI, you're using an AI tool to detect AI because you don't want AI. And I'm just like, y'all, let's think this through and see what it is that, yes, too. If someone had a really good annual report or a recent proposal that talked, that described in detail, and
Yeah.
they already know the needs of the community. They do community needs assessments. They do all these things. Then what is the harm of taking that information and asking this tool to put it into the format that matches the questions? What is the harm there? What if they can't afford a grant writer or afford to hire a grant consultant? Are we saying, I mean, what are we saying as grant professionals about AI? Then, oh, well, you can't use this tool, small organization, because you need to hire a grant professional.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're saying? Or are we wanting to maybe make it easier for people to get into grants, or we want to make it harder because it was harder for us? I don't know. Those are just some things that I think about when I'm sitting under a tree in Mount. I was not thinking about that when this picture was taken, but I'm just.
Well, and I wonder,
Just,
your comment about what are they worried about? I wonder if I'd be curious to see if organizations, funders, have seen an uptick in applications because you do have with this tool, there are agencies that never had the time because they had one staff member who was doing all the things and they did not have hours and hours to dedicate to a grant. They didn't have the money to hire a grant pro, but now with AI, they can make it happen, right? And so are they seeing a ton more? And is
I
that
think they're probably,
frustrating?
if I had to guess, and it's a guess, it's speculation, but I'm thinking back to, was it last year when I was working on a short-term contract with a big agency out in California, and we submitted a grant to. They had operations up and down the state, but this was LA County, and it was a very prominent family foundation in LA County that was doing this really cool thing. They were like, it's general operating for all kinds of agencies that provide these kinds of things, and one of them fit this particular client. And so they do really good work, and it was an amazing program, and it was good data, tightly put together, answer all the questions. The same funding agency, sent an email out. They were like, "Hey, we've received your proposal, blah blah blah," but then they sent out about a month later. They were like, and this was only for work only in one county. Granted, it was LA County, so okay, humongous,
Yeah.
but still one county. And they had, their applications were in the thousands. And maybe and they were like, we just can't, we're overwhelmed by this.
Yeah.
And they were clearly communicating all the way through, but I'm wondering if part of that is that people who had never written a grant before decided to throw their hat in the ring with some generic weirdness that they got off of a free version of Chat or Claude or whatever they're using, or Google Gemini, I don't even know, and sent that in. So I'm wondering if it's like flooding, if maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
That it's making it easier, because I know publishers and agents and literary agents are saying that they're getting all these, everybody says they want to write a book now, and there are people who come online and say you can use AI to write your novel in 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's going to be a really shitty novel. I just want to tell you that. But it's making an already slow process even slower. So, I mean, I can see, what I'm saying is I can see both sides of it, but I'm also like, if someone is using it to really legitimately try and
need.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
what are we saying? Are they, and also funders, if you're asking that question, you need to tell us why you're asking that question. Are you going to look on AI proposal? Are they going to automatically get ranked lower? Are you just not even going to consider them? Because that's the case, tell a girl. It's like, if you use AI in any way, we will not, and we find out, we will not accept it. But why are you what does that question entail, and why are you asking it? And what are the consequences to an applicant that does use a paid version of Grammarly, that did get charts formatted in Claude so that they looked really pretty and they were easy to insert, and I didn't have to spend 3 or 4 hours reformatting job descriptions or you know what I mean? Things like that. So that means that agency is not paying me they're paying me for the time that I spent, the few minutes I spent getting that work done versus the hours that I would have had to do it manually. So really, what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's not as straightforward as, do you use it? Yes or no?
That's true. Yeah, a lot to think about. So, well, we've been focusing on grant-specific uses of AI, but we'd really like to pull it back for a minute and take a look at the broader bros. I'm just combining things today. Broader pros and cons
Got you. I
comes to
got
the
you.
more macro level of AI. So there is a recent study. So thanks to Kimberly for finding this in the journal Brain Science, and we'll include a link to this in the show
Yep.
notes. I'm just going to give you the highlights. So it looks at brain rot and cognitive decline, much of which could be associated with consuming AI generated content. The article is titled "Demystifying the New Dilemma of Brain Rot in the Digital Era." So the background is this present study aims to investigate the phenomenon of brain rot with a focus on its key pillars, psychological factors, digital behaviors, and the cognitive impact resulting from the overconsumption of low quality digital content. And this cracks me up. Just not brain rot doesn't crack me up, but I know every now and then my daughter, especially after like she's had a long day at school and she's had lacrosse practice and we've had dinner and it's not quite time for bed, but I'm like, hey, what do you want to do? She's like, I'm just gonna go rot in my bed for a while, which means she's gonna lay in her bed, she's gonna scroll on her phone, and then she's gonna go to bed, right? So it's this term is used far and wide, right? But let's talk about the methods of this particular study. It said they employed a rapid review approach examining research published between 2023 and 2024 and explores the causes and effects of brain rot, focusing on the overuse of social media, video games, and other digital platforms. That what they found is that brain rot leads to emotional desensitization, cognitive overload, and a negative self-concept. It's also associated with negative behaviors such as doom scrolling, zombie scrolling, and social media addiction, which are all linked to psychological distress, anxiety, and depression. These factors impair executive functioning skills, including your memory, planning, and decision making. The pervasive nature of digital media, driven by dopamine driven feedback loops, exacerbates these effects, right? So it's like, even though you know it's bad for you, you watch and then you get this high for a quick moment and then you need it again to get that high. And it's just this never ending cycle, right? So the conclusion from this study is that by offering strategies to prevent brain rot, such as controlling your screen time, curating digital content, and engaging in non digital activities. And honestly, I'm thinking that last one is probably the best out of all of those because curating your stuff, you're still getting digital comment no matter how much you're trying. And when it comes to social media, you can try to curate all day long, but there are still there's things that show up in my feed that I'm like, this makes no sense based on what I have liked and commented on and chosen to look at. So people who think they can curate it when other people are in charge, that kind of blows my mind. But anyway, so given the increasing prevalence of digital engagement, it's essential to explore a variety of strategies, including mindful technology use to support cognitive health and emotional well-being.
I chose this study, and you may be listening to this going, hey, well, that doesn't really relate to AI exactly. But I think it's an illustration of over reliance. Again, fire, cars, wine, over reliance on fire in your house, building fires all the time, or burning leaves in your backyard. There's all sorts of things, the bad effects of that, and always relying on cars and never walking anywhere. Well, you're going to lose some things like maybe your mobility, maybe muscle strength. And yeah, if you drink wine all the time, and you have it turns into a real issue. Obviously, you can lose your life and your a lot more. But the idea of always rely. So there's I never touch the stuff, which is one way to look at AI. But then there's the other. I use it for everything, and I would not be surprised if there are other studies out there that are related to if you use AI for everything, like thinking instead of critically thinking through a proposal and seeing what information you need, you do just plug in an old one and say, hey, can you update this based on this NOFO or this web page from this funder? You could be eroding your critical thinking skills as a grant professional or a nonprofit person or a city government or county government employee. I think it's like anything. If you're not using your brain to critically think and you're relying on this tool for every single thing in your life, I think you're going to lose some things.
No, I think you're right.
And yeah.
Well, and I worry, like you go back to this is a great, can be a great tool for beginning grant writers, but at the same time, I almost even don't want beginning grant writers to use it because, like, I tell my kids, I'm like, because they're not supposed to be using AI when it comes to their writing for school, and they're kind of annoyed by it because they're like, well, this is great, but I'm like, you first have to learn how to do it yourself to
And
understand if what
then,
AI
so,
is
yeah,
giving you is any good. And they get frustrated by that, but I'm like, no, you need to learn the basic skills
you need to
yourself.
build that brain
Yeah.
power, because you are going you I feel like you need it just to make good decisions throughout your life. And I would say for beginning grant writers, it's like if you have examples, I would say learning about it yourself first, and whatever way that makes sense for you, and using it sparingly for certain things.
Yeah.
Like for me, a good beginner use or is here's this proposal. And if you are a consultant, you need to make sure your clients are okay with you doing this.
Yeah.
Some people might be freaking out, but it's like if you upload the proposal and then you can go in and say, don't use this as training. I mean, there are things that you can do, but I'm also like, if this is a public document, I'm like, but if you were using it to go in and say what's missing, or this, or around a specific question, or what should a timeline look? They ask for a timeline. Here's the I've copied and pasted this into the prompt. What are ways to format timelines based on what's the most compact way to format this timeline based on this particular thing? Now you're cooking, right?
Yeah.
Because why do you need to go in? And I realize that that's a me thing, but I'm also like, that's a time saver right there. Or here are these citations. Can you please format them to APA style? You
Yeah.
could probably do that in other things, but if you're already working in it, and then, those kinds of things that can save you so much time, but you need to be able to describe what is going on in the community that you serve that prompted the need for this proposal that is seeking grant funding to meet that need. You got to have that down first. Otherwise, it is going to sound super generic, and there is more competition now. I mean, I hate to refer to it like that, but it is what it is. And so you need to be good and clear about what you're doing. And I would not trust an algorithm that solves based on almost like super advanced math, about what words should come next. Sometimes the best writing is the unexpected, not a mistake, but the unexpected comparison, to in a need statement. There are enough people that are affected by this disease to fill Madison Square Garden 4 times a day or something like that. I'm just saying, just those kinds of comparisons and ways to draw and put those details. That's the kind of thing that will make your grant stand out, and not generic phrasing and you not even looking at it and trusting it. I also realized that I have a hard time trusting Waymo cars. They have them now in Atlanta, and
Yep.
and it scares me. But
Same.
I'm also realizing that that's the way of the future. And there may be a day when I'm no longer able to drive, when I will appreciate that. But I'm also, that's when I'm no longer able to drive. That's not because I want to just never, ever drive again. So, but it can be a tool that could be really helpful. And I feel the same way about AI and also using your brain. And I'm a big fan of moving my body in all sorts of ways. I didn't always used to feel that way, but now I'm like, oh, right. If I don't do this, knees are going to get creakier and stairs might become an issue and all these things. And let's not do that. So let's not do that to your brain. I guess that's what I'm saying. But I wanted to end with, and I've been like, oh, hey, AI, I use AI, but also I'm using it and going, shit, that there's environmental concerns and community concerns. I'm going to say, and I don't have the deep knowledge here, but from a lay user of AI who doesn't know about coding and development of programs and applications, I don't understand why it's being shoved down our throats, all of us, everybody in the United States, and all its territories, everybody. it's being shoved down our throats that we have to have all these data centers to process all this stuff. And it's by the titans, by Anthropic, the people who brought us Claude and that Chat GPT dude. I'm just not even going to get into it right now, but they're like, hey, it's the future and it's inevitable. And they're telling students this at college. And I'm like, y'all developed this and you're saying, I don't know where it's going to go, but you need to get ready. We need all these data centers. I'm like, I'm not at the point where I have a bulletin board with all those red threads on it, like conspiracy theory man. But I'm like, I don't know that we need all these data centers to do all these things. And also, it's causing a lot of harm. AI at that level, if we're talking about eliminating jobs, by 2030, like the Industrial Revolution, but on steroids, if I hear that one more time, it's like the processing centers for all of this, because it's private versus public, are being built in areas where land is cheap and there's water that's not heavily regulated. So guess what? That's usually going to be where lower income neighborhoods are or rural areas. Yep. And there are enormous effects on the environment and quality of life. And there are a lot of protests all around the country about this. So I would say, before you think I'm going to have AI do everything, just like driving a car, I'm beating this thing into the ground, but just like driving a car, maybe you don't need to use your car for everything. Maybe you can hop in a Waymo. Maybe you can take public transportation. Maybe it makes more sense to have some things delivered to you than going out all the time. Maybe you need to think about that, about the quality of life, and sort of think about it just outside you. And the data centers are just, I just really resent how these tech bros are just shoving it down our throats. We'll put this in the show notes as well. There's a PBS NewsHour article about this, and I'm not going to, it's long. I'm not going to go into all of the bad things, but right now, the data centers that we have right now are already, the toll on the environment is already equal to some of the world's largest countries. And that is not the United States. It is it's the data centers. It's not, because we have been energy hogs for our whole, ever since. There's energy to be consumed. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the United Nations did a report on this, United Nations University report, which was cited in this article, that predicts that water and energy use and pollution from these data centers will double in 4 years. And this came out this year, this study, as the use of artificial intelligence grows. Last year, global data centers used 448 trillion with a T watt hours of electricity, more than all but 10 countries of the world. Okay. And you can read it about all the trillion tons of carbon dioxide, all these things that are out there. By 2030, data centers will account for nearly 3% of the world's projected electricity use. And if data centers were a country, the country would be projected to rank 6th highest in power use in 2030. So, and guess what? The way things are being set up, and because there's no government regulation of this, at least in the United States, it's all private enterprise that are building these data centers around where, and there are horrible effects, not just in driving up data, but water. Like we got to have water, affecting people's water quality. And again, it's usually in poor. If it's in a city, it's going to be where the poor people live, right? And in the state of Georgia, that is usually going to be your brown and black people are living in these neighborhoods. In the rural areas, it's not going to be where, somebody has his big fancy hunting plantation. It's going to be where there are a bunch of mobile homes and things out in this poor county, and they need any kind of development they get. And these folks come in and just strip out everything. And it's just, I'm not convinced that we need them all, but the buying and selling of the land, and then the money that AI will generate at some point is just going to make the rich people even richer. And I just want to point that out. So there's a lot of things to consider. I'm all about regulating this and not putting it in the hands of private enterprise. because I do like to write and read historical fiction, and and nonfiction as well. And if you read about the Industrial Revolution, it sure was great for the men, and they were men that owned the factories, but not so great if you look at what it was like to live in London. I'll just use England as an example. What it was like to live in London or Birmingham or Liverpool or some other places when the factories were coming in, and how horrible it was for people, and how polluted the air was with all the coal and all these kinds of things. So I kind of see it happening again with AI. And so I am all about use it where it makes sense, but don't become overly dependent on it. But let's think about it, and let's think about how it's being brought in and how it's being promoted and who is really benefiting, because I guarantee you it's not you and me necessarily.
Yeah. Two things I'll add to that is, one, there's a podcast that both Kimberly and I listen to some called Corporate Gossip, which they highlight all kinds of big companies and CEOs. And they, towards the end of 2025, they did a 2-part episode about OpenAI and Sam Altman, which opened my eyes big time. That was the first time I'd started hearing about like AI is not so great, and here's some reasons why. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And I will say, they can be a little crude on that podcast, and that can be a little obnoxious, but I've learned so much about all kinds of different corporations. So they can also be
hilarious. It's like a gossip podcast, but it's all about corporate stuff. And and how things are linked together and where the power goes, and the evil that super rich people can do.
Yep. So I'll share that. And then call. I thought it was interesting, a show my husband and I got into probably a year or so ago. So we've been binging and are making our way through the final season, but it Hacks on HBO, which is, if you don't follow, it's, the lead lady, Jean, the girl from, she was in.
Jean Smart?
Yes. She plays this comedian, and then she ends up getting paired with this young writer out of Hollywood. And it's a comedy of errors. It's hysterical, but I love that it's, at the end of the day, it's their relationship, because they end up becoming super, super close, even though they couldn't be farther apart when it comes to their politics, their age, their experiences. But in the final season, there's somebody that's trying to create this AI joke writing thing using Jean's image and some of her stuff. And at first, Jean is for it, but the younger writer, she kind of goes off and the guy's like, well, you better do it because it's inevitable. And she kind of has this big soliloquy about why is everybody shoving it? Why is it inevitable? We just have to sit back and take it. She's like, I don't understand. And it was a glorious thing on TV to be, I'm like, kind of agree with her there, So if you've watched that show, I think you'd appreciate it. If you haven't, it's a good show you may want to check out. The whole show is not about AI, but that episode I thought was.
I love that. That's a great idea. And I'm going to go back to wine, fire, and cars, but I'm like, it's not like the United States said, cars, that's great. Anybody can drive them. They can be made of anything. They can go anywhere. It doesn't matter. They're rules of the road.
Yes.
They're licensing. There's education. There's a lot of thought about what roads go where. Now, I'm not saying it's all perfect, but I'm just saying there was thought put into this. You supposedly it's hard to buy.
There's safety features.
There's safety features. Their drinking ages for what it's worth. Their hours. Their licenses for establishments. Their laws or county regulations about how to dispose of things instead of just burning all your trash in the backyard. There are warnings about no fires, no this and that when we're in droughts. We don't have to just sit back and take it. So sometimes I think all the kerfluffle about grants with the AI, I'm like, how about draining the water supply and all these dude bros making all this money saying shoving it down our throats? Why don't we talk more about that? Because that's really, to me, the bigger issue. Whether or not I use a tool that can speed up a formatting a chart or keep me from making an embarrassing typo in an email, may not be the big thing. Maybe we don't need all these data centers. Maybe there can be limits on. In fact, I know we don't. Maybe there are limits around this. And if you're profiting by this, then you need to pay out the nose for the degradation to the environment, or pay so that we can mitigate the factors. Let's talk about that.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. So clearly AI is a very complicated, nuanced, it's a lot. So, and again, I'll go back and saying what we said at the beginning is really just no judgment here on if you don't use it at all. No judgment if you use it quite often. There's, if you're somewhere in the middle.
I will judge you because it's my damn job. I will judge you if you refuse to think about it at all. I'll judge you.
Well,
like,
that's a whole different thing. Like that's the thing.
No, but it's like
whatever level you're using it at.
No,
you need to. There are consequences.
There are implications for you, for your loved ones, for your children if you have them, or your loved ones' children, their friends, your animals, your pet. Just there are implications all the way around, right? And not educating yourself about it. And also, I don't think we have to take it because it's inevitable. I can't stand that kind of talk. It's not true. And educate yourself and speak out and vote accordingly.
True story.
Thanks again to today's sponsor, the Encore Institute for Social Impact. If you want to learn more about this fantastic team whose goal is to bring healthy, sustainable success to your organization, visit EncoreISI.com. You'll find the link in our show notes. Well, as always, we are delighted you were able to escape the bonds of our tech overlords and insufferable dude bros and robber barons version 2. To join us here on the podcast. Thanks.
Yes, it's our solemn promise and pledge that we are not and will never be AI generated by choice.
I mean, fair. There could be a day, but I'm just saying, not by choice.
Nope. So we're honored you chose to spend time with us today. We'll see you guys again in 2 weeks, where we're going to share a how-to episode about standard attachments in grant applications.
Oh, you don't want to miss that one.
See y'all then.